Hello everybody and welcome back to Angie B Crafts with me, Angie B. So today I thought I would start by using a gel plate print that I've got, and I just love the colour of this one. It's very simply two colours of acrylic paint, yellow and this burgundy red colour, and they've just mixed together in the middle to give this sort of orangey brown colour, which is really lovely. I just love the effect this has. So what I thought I'd do is work on it as a big piece and then cut it down so I can decide which part of it I actually want to use. So obviously there's a bit of print here that hasn't come up, but it may be that that works with what I want to do. So I'll work on it as a whole and then cut it down. So I've chosen to use stamping on it in the first instance, and the set that I've chosen is an AALL and Create set, and I am going for this fabulous image here. When I first saw this image I didn't actually figure out what it was, but it's actually aeroplanes and aeronautical things. You've got a plane there coming towards you, a plane there on its side, and this one sideways on, and then you've got different measurements and the likes. Half plan of roof, floor section, so it's got lots of different script on it as well, but I like this as an entire image, so that's what we're going to use. So I've already put it onto my stamping block. It's my AALL and Create stamping block. I love this stamping block. You can see I do love this stamp as well, that's why it's a bit mucky, but I love this because it's got that bend to it. It's not to bend in its entirety, it's to be flexible, so this bit in the middle, which may otherwise get missed, is actually going to stamp. So we're stamping onto acrylic, and the risk with that is that it may move, and if it does, we'll deal with it. So to start off with, I'm using my Versafine Clare ink, and if you've seen any of my videos before, you'll know this is my go-to ink. And the reason that I love this is it's got a long open time, which means that it stays wetter longer, which gives you time to do things with it. So I'm going to cover this whole image with the ink, and then we're going to stamp it. It gives you time to actually make sure all of it's covered. So this has got lots of nice ink on it. Nice healthy layer, and then we are going to flip it over. Now the writing is all this way, so that's going to make that the top. I don't want it that way. I think I like that way as the top. So I'm figuring that out because then I can figure out where I want to put the stamp, and I want it about there. So what I've decided is that I'm actually going to use embossing powder, which is why that's miraculously appeared over here, and we are going to put the ink on, and then we're going to use embossing powder over it so that we get a really clear image, and so that we can define the lines as well. Sometimes when it comes to colouring in, when you've put something down like this, you'll start colouring it in and it's not always as perfect as you want it to be, or you might go over the lines. If you're not very good at colouring in, or you just don't want to have to be as careful, then using embossing powder is a really good way to cheat on that. And it's also very useful if you're stamping onto acrylics, because you can just put the powder straight on, and it means that you have a clear image. So I'm just sprinkling this on, and I've used black ink because I want it to be a black image that I have. I do love this one because I've transferred it into this little pot, so you just basically cover the whole thing. Have I covered everywhere? I think I have. Right, so now to tip it in, there's no little pot, it's just straight back in to the big bowl. So you can see my whole image is now covered with embossing powder. So we'll now heat that up and it will melt, and then I will come back to you. Well, here is the image, totally embossed now, so you can see it's got that beautiful shine to the embossing, and this is now giving me a raised edge. So when I go to add colour, I know that I'm going to stop at those lines, but I can start to make things pop out a little bit. So if I look at this image here, I can see that there's wings here, and then these are the pieces that hold the wings in, so it's just the wings that we want to stand out. Now I've chosen to use gel pens, and I've gone for colours that are comparable to these three colours. So I've got a brownie colour, but it is metallic. You can see it's got little metallic bits on the lid, so you know that it's a metallic one. They're all metallics actually. This is more of a red colour, so this is more like the wine colour down here, and then I've gone for gold as the yellow. So we have the three different colours, I'll put them on here, that match in. So we're going for the same tones, and then I've just got a black metallic one as well. And no doubt at some point I will decide to use some white as well. But to start off with, I'm just going to add some gold in here. So I'm using the colours at the opposite end, so I'm not, at this moment in time, I'm not putting the reddy colour on top of the reddy colour. I'm not saying I'm not going to do that, but at the minute that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for this to stand out and pop. So I'm going to use the opposite colour. There we go. So we're now starting to get a little bit of an image of that plane coming out, but it needs a little bit more. So I've got propeller on the front of it. I don't know if you can see that there's a propeller there. One here and one here. So we need them to pop out. Do we want them? We don't want them in the gold, I don't think. We'll do them in the black actually. Little propellers. It's almost like a charcoal rather than a black. But there we have the propellers now coming out, and I'm going to do the propeller shaft in the brown. So that brown's almost got a hint of gold to it as well. Okay. And then we can go in the black for the wheels. And then we've got this guy is pretty much, you can tell that is now an aeroplane. So now we'll come on to this one. So this one you can see one half is skeletal, it's got all the lines on it to show the skeleton, and one half is solid, so it's almost like this has got the covering on and this has got the skeleton, or potentially this is stage one and then this is the extra bits that come in as stage two. So I think both sides of this need to be the same colour. I'm going to go back to using the gold. Now gel pens are really something that I've previously used more as a highlighter, so I've tended to use the white and the black as my main two, but I've always had a gold and silver for many years. I've had gold and silver. It used to be the way that I always wrote my Christmas cards out, so it was always either gold or silver depending on what colour the envelope was. But this is a really nice way to get a vibrant metallic colour. I'm not worrying about the tone, so when you're colouring you may well be looking at the three tones of a dark tone, a mid-tone and a light tone. I'm not worrying about that here. I'm looking at a solid colour, and it's just to show you where this aeroplane is and where the bits of it are. So we'll do this side in the gold, so it's very much standing out with that lovely black line from the embossing, and it's covering. What I'm finding is that these gel pens cover over acrylic paint beautifully, so you really don't notice the paint underneath. It's not like there's a dark layer underneath. If you look there now, I think that looks stunning. Rather pleased with it. So I'm going to do the same on these. Now remember I said I was going to bring in a white pen. What I may well do, I don't know if it'll work because this is quite narrow. What you can do with this, if you're just stamping it onto a plain background and just want to add some highlights, is use a white pen in these individual pieces, and that can sometimes just add enough depth for you to see a clear image of the plane. I was going to say I'll add some white onto this, but I think it's too narrow to actually get the white pen. It'll just cover all of that gold, which I don't want to happen. And then we've got an edge here. So now we can very clearly see the wings. Okay, so that's beginning to look good. Now we've got here, again, the same thing, but obviously we're going lighter. So I'm wanting to use a darker colour at the tail. But I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go with the red because the red's here, so this is further away. So let's go with the red. Now this red it's almost like a rose gold colour. So even though it looks red, when you look at the lid, it's more of a rosy gold. I quite like it. It's the metallic look of them I think I like. You can get different ones in these gel pens. The sparkle, metallic, or just your normal ones. I think that's the main three. There may well be others. I don't have any of the sparkle. I only have the metallic and then a black and a white. So I can't tell you which are better, but I do know that I really like these metallic ones. I think they're fabulous. Fabuloso. Okay, so we've now got a lovely pink tail. This bit here, which has got sort of crisscrosses on it, that I'm not going to colour because it's the structure, it's the supporting bits inside of it, so I don't want to colour that, but I am going to colour in the propeller again, just so that we see that there is a propeller here at the front. So we're beginning to really see that there's aeroplanes on there now, and you don't have to colour absolutely everything to make something stand out. You can just give a hint to it. So here we have what, to me, I mean these three are all the same plane. So if I'm going to be consistent now, I want the gold wings at the front, but you can't really see the wings here because you're seeing it sideways on. And we've got the tail, but I want the tail to be that similar pink because it's kind of at the same end of the plane. So we'll start with that. We'll cover this. So it's the three ways that you can see a plane, one straight at you, one from up above looking down, and one sideways on. I do love anything to do with like architect's plans and in-depth drawings. I just think the blueprint concept is just fabulous. So I'm laying down a thicker layer on this one, and you can see it's already coming out quite a lot darker. I'm going to go over this and see if we get a darker colour second time, because it's going over different colours, so it's going to react differently. This is over the yellow, so you're going to get a different light response because of what it's going over the top of. Oh, I do rather like this one. Okay, so then what can we do for the wheels? I think the wheels can just have the black on, can't they? Did we do black on the wheels down there? We did. That's exactly what we did. I'm turning this round so that I don't smudge the work I've already done, because we don't want to do that. So this is the body, and then there's kind of a curve here that I'm thinking is probably the wing. Now to make that stand out and show itself more, I think we do need to colour that in. I'm going to go with the brown for colouring that in. Again, I'm turning it just so that my hand doesn't go into any of the wet ink that I've just put down. So this brown it's not what I'd call a true brown. It is brown, obviously, but it's not an obvious. You wouldn't look at it and go, oh, that's definitely brown. It's kind of got a hint of it. It's probably got a hint more of gold as well. I quite like it. It's not as vibrant as the gold. Yeah, I quite like that. Okay, so now I think we're pretty much there, but for me that's going to be a bit boring. So I want to start to add other textures in, and the thing that you've got to bear in mind is that even adding other textures, it doesn't matter if you cover up things you've done. So I'm going to grab some texture paste and see where we go next. The texture paste that I've decided to pick up are granite paste, graphite paste, granite paste and slate paste. And I've picked these up because they're a set, but they're also all of a black stroke grey tone. They're by Pretty Gets Gritty and they are brilliant. I'm not going to use the slate paste because I feel like it's too grey and I don't want it to be that grey, so I'm not using that one. I'm thinking I'm going to stick with the granite paste because that is my favourite. So we'll use the granite paste and we will get a wee knife and we will start applying some granite paste. Oh, it feels so luxurious, this stuff. It's wonderful. I do really love it. And I'm thinking I'm just going to add some layers of it. Just coming in. Like, so you can see I'm not putting on a really thick layer. I'm just putting on some texture. I'm just adding interest. I don't want to lose any of the image really. I just want to add some interest and something a bit more than just the stamp. So I've put some there because I want it to be grounding that part of that particular aeroplane. You can hear there's a grittiness to this. It is a texture paste, it does have texture in it. If you want it to be more mottled, you can do this kind of an effect once you've laid your colour down. And I quite like the way this looks because it just removes, you can end up looking like you've got too many lines if you do it straight on and just leave it. So I quite like the effect of just almost erasing the lines that you've used in your placement, but I want them to kind of stay there. I want this to have a little bit of line. Let me see. Yeah, I quite like that, how that's looking. Right, we've got a bit of texture there. I want to add in some highlights, and the highlights are going to be in the form of a white gel pen, just to bring out certain areas and fill in some gaps in the mind, not in the actual picture. So I'm going to put some just around some of these little edges. And this is just going to give you that effect of there's going to be a light source coming and shining on one side. So we can't put any in there because we've still got some wet there, but we may well add some afterwards. So if we're thinking along the same lines, we'll add some along this edge, coming through here. I went over the embossing there and it just wipes off. It is the embossing powder leaves you with a smooth surface and it's non-porous, so things don't get sucked into it. They will wipe off it quite easily. Obviously not after a period of time, but you just put them on and go, oh, I don't want it there, it will wipe off the surface of the embossing powder, which personally I find very useful to manage those little errors. Now I also think, so you can see that's starting to bring some of these into the foreground, you're starting to notice them a bit more, and I'm thinking that maybe things like this, which you're not really aware of, but if we just add in some little bits of white lines, you suddenly realise there's something else there to look at and it gives more interest to whatever it is you're working on. Put a little white dot in there, and I want to put some just around the edge of this. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is think of the same light source and just add it onto the colouring that I've done, and it just lightens up one edge. I'm going to use the back of my hand, really technical, to wipe off any colour that comes off in this process. You know what I said about if you're really rubbish at colouring and you tend to go outside the lines, you can see if I'm going over the lines, it's going onto the embossing powder, embossed area, sorry, it's not powder anymore, the embossed area. and that makes it easier to get rid of. So I'm just adding a hint of the white. I told you I wasn't going to add all the white because it's only really the width of these little lines, but if we just add a little bit, it's giving us some tonal changes, which are always good. And we'll pop a little bit under here and a little bit under here, because then it's in keeping with what we've done on the other side. So I think that's beginning to look like rather a good piece. What else can we do to it? I think we need to get some black pencil on here. Right, I'm going to use a Stabilo All pencil. Stabilo All pencils are brilliant. They're water soluble and they write on any smooth surface. So it says on them paper, glass, plastic, metal. Okay, so they're really useful for bringing an image forwards. So at the minute, this, yes, we're getting hints of 3D, but if I now shadow around each of these planes, it's going to just make them pop forward a little bit. So that's exactly what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it by using the pencil and then by using a wet paintbrush to just bring it out a little bit more. I'm liking how that's looking. Right, so what I'm going to do now is check these are dry. You know what? They pretty much are actually. I wasn't going to cut them down until they were dry, but they feel dry. So we shall cut them down. I love this cutter. This is my cutter pillar. I'm going to decide whereabouts I want it and cut across. So with the cutter pillar, you're not pressing down and pulling, you just, all you've got to do is make sure that the blade, which is here, oops, here in this housing, is pressing against this metal edge, and that's how the cutting happens. So you just need to have, you don't have to press hard, you need to make that in contact and put your thumb on top, and then with very little effort pull along, which is rather good because it makes cutting a lot easier. It does have the advantage with this as well of having the light underneath, but because of all the lights I have around when I'm doing a video, there's no point in putting the light underneath on because you won't see it. You can cut from either end, there you go, and as long as you're not cutting through something with glue on, it will slice it. So now we're starting to get a rather lovely image. I'm liking it. But true to form, I need it to be dark around the edges. So I have got somewhere, there it is, hiding underneath the stamp block. I've got my Stays On ink pad, which I'm going to go around the edges with. And the reason that I do this with Stays On is because it dries quicker. And also, I've said in many videos, I really like the size of this one. I just think it's a really cute size. You can see it's so tatty. And it's been on all sorts. Earlier today, I used it on some wet crackle gel, so it's probably got quite a bit of that stuck on it at the moment. But it still does its job. which is add a frame around the edge of here, and then in a minute I'm going to pull that frame in a little bit, but I want to get my first frame of edge of framing in, and then let's start bringing it in and just giving it a little bit more darkness to it. I'm also thinking, do I want another colour coming in? I'm not sure that I do actually. I was wondering about bringing in another colour, but I think I'm just going to stick with the black. Oh, I'm rather liking that now. Okay, to make that pop, it needs to go onto a backing. We need to do some matte and layering. So the colour of card, I'm going to have a piece of black. Oop, if I can get a piece out of my stash. So then we have the decision, do we just put it onto black? And there you have a really pop image, or do we put another colour underneath? And this is how I go through the process of making that decision. It is literally pick the colours that you've used and see whether or not you want to put another layer in. So we've used a burgundy. Oh, I don't know if this is going to be quite the right colour, but I think I think that might work. Just having that and then that. Or do we put it the other way? So this is the process that I would go through at any given time. I think I prefer it that way around. So I would then mount it up like that. So let's do it. I'll get some tape. So this is the tape that I recently discovered you can tear, which on bigger pieces is really useful. Doesn't work quite so well on smaller pieces because by the time you've torn it, it is too small of a piece because of the feathered edging. But on the bigger pieces like this, it's great. And this is how I tend to mount things. I tend to do round the edges and then one in the middle and two smaller ones. It's entirely personal preference. Some people might class that as too much, other people may well put on a lot more. It's entirely down to personal preference. If you've got something heavier, you may well want to use a wet glue because then you've got a firmer adhesion, or you may choose to use tape and glue at the same time. If you're using foam pads, I have been known to use foam pads with wet glue as well, just to actually make sure that it sticks, which is what you want. You want these things to stick together. Right, so this is going onto the black, and I'm going to do an approximation of the edges that I want, because then the theory is I only have to cut two edges now. Get my cutter back up and trim those two edges. So it's roughly there and roughly, oops. Okay. Put that back down, and then we need to stick it onto here. I'm liking that. Sorry, I got a bit engrossed then. I'm not sure that I want to use that purple. I think I may just leave it like that. In fact, yes, I am going to leave it like that. I have made that decision now. I'm quite happy with the way that looks. I think the frame is just right for it. It's just what it needs. So that's it. It's a really simple way of using a larger stamp, but using the whole of it. I do have some A4 stamps, and sometimes they're a bit more complex to use the whole of, so you use them in pieces. But this one, it's roughly A5. If I put it, this is an A4 board, so if I put it across the ways for you, you'll see it's roughly A5. Okay. So I hope you've enjoyed that, and you found some useful tips in there. If you've got any questions, please let me know. If you've got anything you'd like to see me do, please let me know. I'm more than happy to sort of do crafty requests. Follow me on other social media as well, on Facebook and Instagram, Angie B Crafts and Angie Mary B. And hopefully I will see you again. Thanks for watching. Bye.